This podcast episode was made possible in part with support from Sacred Rights, a project funded by the Henry Luce Foundation and the E. Rhodes and Leona B. Carpenter Foundation and hosted by Northeastern University. Sacred Rights is a project that supports public scholarship on religion and provides resources and networks for scholars of religion committed to translating the significance of their research to a broader audience. I recommend you learn more about Sacred Rights on their website at sacred-rights.org or find Sacred Rights on Twitter at sacred_rights. Welcome to Classical Ideas. This is Greg Soden. On this episode, I am delighted to welcome Robert Monson to the show. Robert Monson is a writer, musician, and scholar that looks closely at Black and womanist theologies, as well as Black disability theology. His work engages Black religious identities, Christian nationalism, disability, and more. He is currently a PhD student and is a host for two podcasts, Black Coffee and Theology, and Three Black Men, Theology, Culture, and the World Around Us. On this episode, we discuss both of his podcasts, his article, Seated at the Cross, What Black Disabled Bodies Can Teach Us About Environmental Justice from the Journal for Cultural and Religious Theories Spring 2024 issue, and public scholarship. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can find Robert on threads at Robert_the_contemplative and at his Substack, Musings from a Broken Heart, that's substack.com. Please enjoy my conversation with Robert Monson. Robert Monson, welcome to Classical Ideas.
Hey, thank you for having me. I am excited to talk with you today.
I'm excited that you're here as well, Robert. I'm wondering if we can kick it off by having you just introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners out there so they know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I always like to start off by saying that I am a soft Black man. That is the way that I show up in the world. That's what's important to me, and how I want people to approach me. Hey, I'm soft. I'm not one of God's strongest soldiers. And I am a scholar of mostly Black disability and Black theology and womanist theology. Those are kind of where I hang my hat. And yeah, I'm interested in creating a world where Black disabled bodies, Black bodies can flourish, can interact with the rest of the human family, and not be harmed, right? So that's a bit about me. I am currently a PhD student in my second year. Um, Many more moons to go in this process, but here we are.
Wonderful. I want to dive into a little bit of some of your areas of academic interest. Tell me a little bit about how you got interested in Black religious identities as a research area.
Yeah, I think it has been a long, winding road, the road to Mordor, it feels like at certain
Mm,
points. And I would have to back up a bit and say that I grew up as a Black atheist, and it's always important for me to put on the Black part because a lot of conversations around atheism do not center Black identities.
mm.
And so I grew up with a very expansive view of spirituality that I learned to cultivate. And so later in life, I'm in my 40s now, I went on this journey to discover what Christianities could be, what conversations were people not having, especially as it related to Black social locations, plural. And so I kind of stumbled on it accidentally. I remember the specific conference I was at where I first heard of womanist theology, and that was not a term that was legible to me. And I had such uh, interest as this particular scholar was talking that that kind of led me on the journey to all that I'm researching now, right? After that conference, I just went on Amazon and put in womanist theology. And picked the first book that came up, which was I Found God in Me by Dr. Mitzi Smith. It's a curated volume with essays from a lot of different womanists. And that opened my world up so much. There were so many different kinds of writings from Dr. Will Gaffney, Mitzi Smith, and others that I really credit that accidental buy on Amazon with setting me on the trajectory that I'm here. And now, yeah, I just was enamored with how Black people show up to the theological table, the things that we could write about, the wisdom that we bring in society. And so I try to think of myself as someone who is adding to the canon of Black theological thought.
Wonderful. Is there an interesting backstory too to the interest in studying disability?
Yeah, I'm disabled. So I thank you for asking that, because some people ask me that, and it is not often that people say that. My own journey towards recognizing my disabilities has been a long and winding one. I went through a series of hospitalizations after 2016 and went on the difficult route of processing what a new normal could be. And then that was compounded by people perceiving me as able-bodied, people wanting me to show up as, we say in Black communities, the magical Negro. And so I found that people resisted treating me as a disabled person. And so yes, so my own journey and my own difficulty in coming to the term disabled kind of sparked this interest in looking for other Black scholars, other Black people outside of the academy who were talking about their own journey. And what I realized is those conversations were not being amplified. And so I wanted to join the conversation around disability and include the Black in it because I felt like some of the main texts that were out there never had an intersectional lens when they talked about disability. There was this presumption that we're all the same, and we're not, right? So yeah, so my own journey and wanting to nuance the conversation a little bit.
Wonderful. Well, as a person who has been podcasting since 2017, whenever I started looking at your work and I realized that you are also quite a prolific podcaster, I got super excited. I want to know a little bit about your Three Black Men, Theology, Culture, and the World Around Us podcast that you do with Sam and Trey, which started, it looks like it started in 2020 and it goes until the present day. I just listened to your Kendrick and Drake episode the other day as well, which was awesome. Um, it's because I followed that story so closely and I was like, oh
Yeah.
great, I'm totally just gonna listen to this one right away.
Wow.
Tell me a little bit about that podcast and what you all do over there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was spurred on by the pandemic, and we were all bored in the house bored. And I had met Sam and Trey on the platform, the evil place now, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. And I found at that time Twitter was a generative place for me to find companionship, to find thought partners from across the country, across the world, really. And I met these brothers through Twitter and putting them in a DM group and said, "Hey, we need to be friends. We're in the house. I don't know how you do this when you've never met in person, but
Hmm.
we went on this beautiful brother finding journey together, right? And so we were having these conversations via DM groups and then later a Twitter thread that is one for the ages via text message. And I eventually said, hey, what if we put some of these conversations that we're having out into the world? What if we made a podcast? And from there, history was made, I guess, in a way. But what we found was the conversations we were having were things that people were wondering aloud to themselves, but nobody had put it into a podcasting format in the way that we were wanting to talk about theology, the culture that we inhabit, and the world around us, right? People were doing one of the three of those. So, yeah, we talk about everything. Some of the conversations are explicitly theological, and we all come from very different backgrounds. And some of them are about Kendrick and Drake. Some of them are about, Kanye West. Some of these things are things that we find interesting. And our first audience is ourselves. We say that all
Hmm.
the time. Yeah, that's us.
Wonderful. What about Black Coffee and Theology with Rose J. Percy that you started apparently a year later after your first podcast? Tell me about this one too.
It is so funny to hear you reflect it back to me. One, because I'm an extremely shy person. So who would have known all these years later with all these listens that I would have two podcasts? And I'm shy. I I was loving the conversations, the guests that we were having on Three Black Men. And I had a conversation with Trey one day and saying, "Hey, I want to have different conversations than what we have um, on the podcast." And I just wanted to feel like having coffee with a friend and just catching up about theology. I wanted to break down this weird stigma of professional researchers and the average layperson. And yeah, I just wanted to break down that whole wall. And so I started Black Coffee and Theology out of that. And for the first um, 2-ish years, it was just me by myself hosting, these conversations with others. And then the talented Rose J. Percy agreed to come on with me. I think we are able to talk about God, the divine community from, yes, we're both seminary educated, but we're able to do it in a way that hopefully reaches, the average person, which is what we could still consider ourselves as. So.
Yeah. As somebody who puts out academic writing and the process that goes along with that, and also puts out podcasts and the process that goes along with that, what does podcasting do for you that maybe writing doesn't or academia doesn't? What is it about podcasting for you?
I like podcasting better, so I'll say
Yeah,
that.
me too.
So, um, I think, here, so there's a lane for both, right? I realized during the initial stages of the pandemic that a lot of scholars found themselves unable to access the ways that they were reaching people before, right? We weren't meeting in classrooms or conferences. The love of journals, academic journals, was waning in some ways, and podcasting became the new way to have scholarship that's out there and accessible for people to touch. And so I like it. There's a dynamic to podcasting, and you probably feel this is you're able in real time to have this synergy in this generative space to encounter thought and personality and heart that I don't have when I do academic writing.
Mm.
Academic writing is necessary and it reaches people in a different way. Um, but my love is podcasting, and then I would say even above academic writing, I have a Substack called Musings from a Broken Heart, where I mostly do non-academic writing and reach people that way. And I have such generative conversations with people who comment on my work, who ask me questions. And so, yeah, there's more immediate feedback and more felt humanity, I feel like, in the public engagement.
Love it. Well, let's shift gears. Now I'm going to go drag you into the academic world. After you just
It's
said,
okay. I live here. So,
I like it. I like it less. Okay, well, we're going there now.
I-
So funny. let's talk about your article that you sent me. You sent me a piece of reading called Seated at the Cross: What Black Disabled Bodies Can Teach Us About Environmental Justice, from the Journal for Cultural and Religious Theory from the spring of 2024. So we got a really recent piece here. Tell me a little bit about what this paper is about. Just kind of tell listeners what the purpose of this piece is.
Yeah, so I originally presented this at a conference on environmental justice, right? And I was so intrigued by thinking about environmental justice and what is often left out of framing how do we take care of this planet? How can we be better citizens of our society and the spaces that we inhabit? Disabled people are left out of that conversation, or they are put there in a condescending way, or as an afterthought, right? Um, I in presenting this, I had to think about a friend of mine from earlier in my master's program who she confessed that, hey, when people have paper straws at these you because that's been a huge thing at many places to have paper straws because they're better for the environment. She shared with me that those are dangerous for her, that by trying to drink from those straws because she has impediments within her throat, that she can die. And I thought, nobody probably considered that when we're trying to care for the earth, Black disabled people can teach us something because we're already mindful of our surroundings. We're already having to deal with and make peace with the earth. And so many people are starting from scratch when they could just consult the wisdom that's around them. And, I started by thinking about the Flint water crisis,
Yeah.
and framing that as this is a disabled conversation and it's a disabled environmental conversation.
Yeah, that really reminds me of something I read a long time ago when I was studying to become a teacher, where I was reading about the conditions of the environment growing up in East St. Louis. And it was a really stark descriptor for me because I grew up like 7 miles from East St. Louis. And so
Wow.
I was like picturing my own yard in my front yard and backyard in the house that I grew up in. And then I'm comparing that with the descriptions that I'm seeing in that book, and it couldn't be more different. It's like different
Right.
planets. And so when I was reading about your descriptions of the Flint water crisis, it really resonated with me for a personal story in my own life that I had thought about. Um, how did the process of that go for you, watching the Flint water crisis unfold as somebody who cares about disability and environment? What was it about that event that like really stands out to you?
Yeah, I think it helped me care about the environment more. Here we have this crisis that was spurred on by capitalism and greed, and where people were truly not considered, right, as they shifted the water supply to a polluted entity, and therefore disabling generations of mostly Black and brown people. To this day, people are still being made disabled. And I thought, what do we do in a world like this where one decision, one series of decisions can make disabled bodies, right? Can impact forever people's experience in this world, right? And so it was heart-wrenching to me. Disability doesn't have to be a bad word. It doesn't have to be a naughty word. But then what do we do with people who did not choose this, right? And that's the link to, when people talk about the cross in Christianity, and there's this notion from scripture of take up your cross and follow Jesus, and willingly choose this way of suffering. And so as I thought about people in Flint who did not choose this, they are forced into this suffering, is how do we think about pain? How do we think about the environment through the lens of these precious ones and who did not ask for this, right?
Yeah. I was thinking about this and I was curious about what you think everybody needs to know about Black people who are disabled in the United States, like demographically or anything that really stands out to you. Like, are there like disparities and discrepancies that people are overlooking as they're going through their day-to-day lives? What do you know about this topic that you feel like everybody should know?
Yeah, it's so funny because I was just talking with a sacred rights leader right before this,
Hmm.
ironically, about
Hmm.
this very topic.
Oh,
Right?
good. You're fresh.
Yeah, so I'm fresh. I feel fired up. And what I was saying to her was, what I would want people to know is how disabled Black people are. The latest statistics that I reference even in this article are that Black people are disabled in America more than every ethnic group and almost every age group. And so when you first take and sit with that, that's a lot. And then I think the breakdown is 1 in 4 Black people are disabled. Many who would never claim that title, many would never, I have friends who they have fibromyalgia, they have medicated depression and bipolar, they have pain in their body, and they would never even claim that they're disabled. And and so the first thing I would say is I want you to see us. I want you to perceive that we're here. And often how we're treated is the disparity that you asked about earlier. There's a disparity between who we are as disabled people and how we're treated in society.
Hmm.
And often we are depicted as these larger than life superhumans that are not worthy of care. And so I want you to perceive us, and I want you to know that we are worthy of care. And then third, I want you to know that we have wisdom just by our very being in this world, in this ableist society. We have wisdom that if you would just incline your head just a little bit, um, you might learn something and we all might be more liberated together, right? This tangent, I must say, is I think
Yes.
about at the early stages of the pandemic where organizations, conference holders, churches were thinking about how do we gather and make meaning when we can't all be in the same place. And I thought, wow, you're asking the same thing that disabled people have been answering for a long time because we can't gather like
Mm.
everyone else. So you're asking these questions as if they're new, and we could have helped you, but it's again, people created things without our consults, and and you can judge the fruit of that. But so we're here.
Yeah. How did your perspective shift? I mean, I know you mentioned some hospitalizations in 2016. Like, what was your pre and post reflections and awareness like about disability before and after those experiences that you had? Is this something that took your life in a totally new direction?
It definitely took my life in a brand new direction. Previous to that, I didn't think about people who were disabled, and I think I had a very limited view of what disability was. Right now, we know through different definitions of disability, whether it's the CDC or other organizations, that disability are different impairments of either the mind or the body that hinder one from being able to engage in society in the way that they would want to, right? And so, or that they need to or are impressed upon, right? And so, previous to that, I think I thought of disabled people when I had to, and post hospitalizations, post trying to figure out what was wrong with me, I realized the tumultuous nature of the medical complex of America. I realized how difficult it is to buy the medications you need to just have a normal day or semi-normal day. How do you do it when you don't have insurance, right?
Hmm.
um, People having to do GoFundMe's just to get the medications that they need to have a normal day, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
so
disgusting.
it is disgusting. And my whole world was shifted, right? I didn't have insurance. So I hate that I had to be impacted in some way to awaken to these realities, but here I am.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you want to do now. You want to get these messages out. You want people to think about these ideas. How are you? What are some of your goals with regards to public facing work to spread the word and awareness about this and get your voice and ideas that you believe in out into the world for a wider audience beyond just people in religious studies departments in universities?
Yeah, I know that I am committed to people feeling more human, being able to access their humanity. And I know that that human reclamation project is that's not often what people talk about in what they desire in the world, but I desire to create spaces where people think thoughtfully of their own humanity, whether it's disability or anything, and are able to reflect on areas that have dehumanized them, right? And so, to that end, that's why I have multiple ways to reach people, whether that's the two podcasts that I have, the Substack that I have, the academic work that I have. I want to, yes, I can write really brilliant things that four people will read in a journal somewhere. um, but I want people to be able to say, wow, in reading this, I feel like I can tap into my humanity more by radically focusing most of my work on Black bodies, Black experiences. I don't want to exclude the rest of humanity. I hope by hyper focusing that people are able to see their own stories, they're able to see their own work, right? And so I have loved when people that are not Black have said, wow, by you saying it in this way, this helped me see myself. Somebody said recently, like, your work feels so poetic that I feel like I'm able to breathe when I read your work. That matters to me, right? Like
Mm.
how people feel even more than the content that they are ingesting from me. So I aim to write and to speak in such a way where people feel more human.
Yeah. How do you feel your skills growing the most with regards to like public output and things like that? Like, because I know that you do like some trainings and stuff like that. How do you feel yourself kind of changing and growing?
Again, I was just talking with Sacred Rights about this morning. I think,
You're so
hey,
prepped. You got a pre-interview. It's great.
yeah, it was like, this is perfect. It was a warm up. I, I feel like I've changed both in confidence and how I view public scholarship, right? I am shy, as I said earlier, and I have never wanted to be the expert that knows everything. Everyone has had a class with the know-it-all and with the person that needs to prove that they are right in order to feel good about themselves. That's not me. I can be humble, happy in my house all day by myself, reading my little books, reading my
Hmm.
comic books, watching Star Trek.
Yeah.
But um, I have shifted and realized in sharing with people versus of trying to be the loudest voice, I just want to be a voice that shares. I want to be a scholar that is addicted to play, right? And that teaches you how to play, right? And so that has shifted then how I present different things. And it's why I often present most of my things as musings. It's it's not to say that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I feel people are more receptive when I say this is a musing. How about have you considered? I often say this is a reflection. Um, Meaning I know what I'm talking about, but I offer it in a gentle manner for you to ingest this and move this around in your life in what way is most beneficial to you.
Yeah. How are you enjoying working with other people who are kind of on the same path as you of like wanting to be more publicly facing with their work? How are you enjoying those collaborations and conversations?
I'm enjoying because I have it is a wide array of people. Um, Many people are like me, and they're like, we just found ourselves here for whatever reason. We don't want to do this, but here we are. And so the reluctant facing public facing person is where half of my colleagues are,
Hmm.
right? Um, and even on Three Black Men, Sam is a reluctant public facing person, but he's brilliant. He's just reluctant. And but then Trey is he's a public facing theologian. He loves it. He's got a book, Theologizing Bigger. He could be on 1,000 podcasts and doesn't feel inhibited in any way. He shows up as himself, and so I'm surrounded by that, right?
Hmm.
There are the people who are like, we're here, we would rather not be. And then I'm around people who are so enthusiastic that it does inspire me um, to kind of be in the middle. I'm not enthusiastic, but I'm not super reluctant, but I'm reluctant. So
Yeah. Are you the editing force behind the podcast? Like, are you the person who does all the
yeah.
technical stuff? Who's in charge of that?
I, it's me. It is I, said the fly. So yeah, I'm kind of not just the editor, but I help frame what are we going to talk about. I'm the one that's initiating the conversation um, on both podcasts. Hey, what are we going to talk about? What are you all feeling as you are going through your workday? So that's me.
Someone's got to drive the car, right?
Yes. So I props to you. You are all the above in this realm. Hey, I could not do it.
I get it. I totally I feel the exact same way. Well, Robert, where can like tell people where to find you if they want to get in touch, follow along, like restate all the things you've said. Just remind everybody where you are, that your work is coming out, that you want people to see.
Yeah, so you will not find me on most social media because again, the bit of reluctance is there. But you can find me on Threads as Robert the Contemplative.
Yeah, I followed
Uh,
you there recently, actually, I think.
oh snap! Okay, I gotta
Yeah.
find you.
I think I found you. I think I followed you under my my other podcast user handle called Propaganda Pod.
Okay, I'm gonna find you. Okay, hey,
So I think followed
um,
you.
love this. The connections. Um, Yeah, so Threads is one. My Substack, Musings from a Broken Heart. I People have a good time over there, I'm biased, but that's one. And then the podcast, Black Coffee and Theology and Three Black Men. Yeah, so that's all the ways that you can really reach me. You won't find me on Facebook or none of those because I'm not arguing with people all day.
Excellent. Well, actually, I just now followed you on Threads. I saw your account the other day pop up, but you have a new follower on Threads as of 10 seconds ago. Um, Robert Monson, thank you so much for coming on Classical Ideas and telling me about your variety of interests in podcasting and in writing and in the teamwork that you do with all the people that you collaborate with. It's a real pleasure to hear your story and having you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you so much, brother.